thank you to our sponsors at Ludian Lexicon and SkyPoint. And I'd love for everyone to welcome Daniel Christian on to take over and take it away.
But like the title suggests, we're going to have a introduction to Power Automate for desktop. But I'm a very heavy, demo-centric person. I just believe that instead of me talking about it, if I just show it to you, that'll at least get some of the ideas and some of the thoughts flowing in you as well. So this will be a very demo-heavy session as well. But let's just at least go ahead and get started on that. And as you know, it was announced, I'm an MVP, so I'm an MVP certified engineer. I said certified engineer, certified trainer. I put all my social media handles on the chat over there. I'm also very active on YouTube. I release 2 videos a week across the entire Power Platform because I just believe that focusing only on one service can kind of stagnate a little bit. If you take a look at all the services together, that's what gives the full holistic approach. And so that's why my channel pretty much covers all of that. So if you go to just YouTube and search for Daniel Christian, you'll find all of my videos over there. And yeah, actually, so let's get started. One of the things about Power Automate desktop flows, you may hear from time to time that the acronym PAD, P-A-D. One thing I have firsthand learned is that Microsoft is not a big fan of that for good reasons, because it's Power Automate for desktop. So you might still see, in fact, some of the URLs also might see the term PAD, but the technical term is Power Automate for desktop. But in everyday conversation, and you don't want to type the whole thing, you just put in pad. This is what it means, Power Automate for desktop. So let's talk about what this Power Automate for desktop is all about. It is definitely an extension of the cloud flows. And in fact, one of my demos, I'll prove that to you. So what that means is that you are able to go ahead and build flows by actually logging into your browser, going ahead and accessing the Power Automate website or the site, and doing cloud kind of related flows. Power Automate for desktop is an extension of that, which means that now you can go ahead and use the same concept of workflows, but you can go and trigger them on your local machine, on your desktop, and therefore it's an extension of that. But what it does is it broadens the overall robotic process automation thought process for you, because that is something that we can't completely do on the cloud flows. Granted, on the cloud flows, there is AI where you can do machine learning, you can do training, and you've got that type of AI in it. But robotic process automation, in just a day-to-day terminology, it is had to train something to do your job. Now, that's not a replacement of your job, though. It is to make your job easier. It's a very important piece that I want you to understand as well, because there's always been this fear that, oh, am I training something and I'm going to lose my job? No, it is to train something so that it will do your mundane day-to-day tasks so you can focus on the more important things. This is not going to replace you. It is going to make your job a lot more easier. And so that's why it is. It's an extension of the robotic process automation. And here are actually some examples which are very popular and for what it is applicable for. But what I want you to focus your attention on as most is the one at the bottom. It says it allows you to automate legacy applications such as terminal emulators and desktop applications. The concept of legacy applications, and I'll show you that in one of those demos, is apps that are over 10, 15 years old, which you don't have any way to access the back end system of that application. The terminology is called as APIs. You cannot actually talk to the back end system of that application. The only way you can use the application is by directly opening the application, by clicking on certain things. Like, that's the only way to do it. Other thing you cannot do is you cannot go to the back end database, the place where it actually stores the information, it's tables and columns and rows. You just can't do that for many reasons. First of all, it might be a proprietary one, so you just can't even access it. Otherwise, it might be heavily encrypted, whatever reasons. These are kind of legacy type of applications where all you do is you use the application. You cannot talk to it through its any interface, application interface APIs, or you can't even touch the database. Those are one of the heavy users, or the needs for the heavy users for robotic process automation. And this does sometimes come as a surprise to some of the newer companies which are so cloud-based, mobile-based applications. You might find this a little hard to believe, But trust me, I have spoken to, and I personally am, experiencing this thing where you start having, any of those, besides the Fortune 500 companies, larger companies, we are talking already over 20, 30,000 employees. They have a lot of homegrown type applications which have been built internally, or applications that they have bought where the vendor just doesn't exist anymore. Those are still there and alive and quite well, unfortunately. And Power Automate for Desktop is one of those reasons to use that. So if you have some scenarios like this, you're in the right place for this video. So let's talk a little bit about Power Automate Desktop architecture. Now, I'm not going to deep dive into how this thing was built, but I want to cover some important pieces for that. So the Power Automate is a desktop software. That's the difference for the Power Automate for Desktop. When we go and build these cloud flows, you're not actually accessing a desktop, accessing an application. You basically go to any of your browsers that you use, and then you go to the powerautomate.com and you access, from the browser. Power Automate for Desktop is actually a desktop software, and we'll look at that. But here's the key thing in the software that I want you to be aware of. As you know, any of the Windows softwares that we use, when you have a software running, it actually has a service on the Windows operating system. That's what the service is running. It is tied directly to your software. So for Power Automate for Desktop, there is a service called UI Flow Service. It's a Windows service. And that is the key service which does the talking from the Power Automate for Desktop software right here. And it goes ahead and does the talking to the cloud. This is very important because even though this is a desktop type of application you're using, the entire fundamental usage and the working on this application is completely cloud-based. Hence, kind of makes sense why this is an extension of the cloud, because this is still a very cloud-based application. It's just that its desktop software is available for you. And all of this is happening in between because of the Azure Relay Service. So it's actually a relay service that facilitates the communication between what is your requests coming from your on-prem going to the cloud and vice versa. It's the Azure Relay that does it. So just thought I'll at least give you a little bit of how this thing works from an architecture standpoint. But I want to kind of build a little bit more on that. Well, all right, we went a little too fast. What happened was over the period of time, there were some huge improvements that happened to this. So what Power Automate for Desktop offers direct connectivity to the cloud without the use of on-premises database. So on-premises gateways. On-premises data gateways, as the term suggests, you have to have some way for that Azure Relay for the cloud thing to talk to your desktop. And that gateway is how it is. But what I want to point out over here is that in the first iterations of this Power Automate for Desktop, these two were actually completely independent of each other. So if you kind of see on the previous slide that we had gone through, there was Power Automate for Flow, and then over here, you actually, in addition to the Power Automate for Desktop, you had to have the on-premises gateway also installed. So it was almost like a two-step process that you had to do. But what Microsoft actually realized that it just makes sense to go ahead and couple the two together. So this is pretty neat and it's exciting and it's made it a lot more easier. So now when you go ahead and have Power Automate for Desktop, the desktop client running on a machine, built into it, it has what's called as the on-premises gateway. The gateway is what does the talking between on-prem and online. And so it's a really huge improvement. I have actually met some of the earlier adopters of the Power Automate for Desktop, and they said that they still use the first version of it, but they have to actually slowly transition over. And then there's some work involved in transitioning, but they are really excited about going to this new version because on-premises gateways, new versions would come out, new releases would come out, and sometimes they would not really match the first iteration of Power Automate for Desktop. So that problem just went away. Now it's just all packaged together. And this is actually something that really got me excited too, is that, man, this just made sense, and they finally went ahead and did that. All right, so what I want to do a little bit now is talk about the two types of Power Automate for Desktop robotic process automation system. And you'll actually hear me say the term attended and unattended a lot. In fact, if you are seeing, if you follow me on social media and on Twitter, anytime I release any video of Power Automate for Desktop, you will actually see me put hashtag attended or hashtag unattended. This is what the two things actually mean. But I just cannot get my, all right. So the concept of attended and attended is, without the use of any automation method, you use this automation. So take a look at this image that I have over here. All right, on the left side, the concept of unattended means is that you are going ahead and trigger. In fact, let's switch over to the attended first. Attended means that you and the bot system or robotic process automation system, the RPA, are working kind of side by side. You do a click, and then the bot will go and do some steps. Then the bot waits for you to verify, and then you go and do something else, and then the RPA will actually go and do something else. That is the concept of attended. On the flip side, unattended means that you go ahead and start or trigger the bot, and then the bot takes care of the rest. It will go and do everything on the cloud work. It will go and do everything on the on-premise work, and it'll actually go and do that. So these are the two different types of bot systems available: the attended on the right, the unattended on the left. There are huge number of scenarios and use cases for both of them. There is also two different types of flow logics that you have to use when you build something like that. A lot of my demos that I'll show you are completely attended for good reasons, but I've actually gone and built a lot of my unattended bots as well, completely automated, and there's some requirements for that. So let's just talk a little about what are the differences between the two. Attended, as you've already guessed, no human interactions or decisions are required. You go ahead and basically trigger the bot however you want it, and it'll go and start doing its thing. While the attended one, as we can see over here, it does require some human interactions and decisions, right? That's pretty straightforward on this one. Here, then it is automatically triggered. So what that means is that you can actually make it such that, all right, if a situation happens, I want the bot to be automatically triggered. You can go and do that. Attended usually requires a manual triggering, and that's why it is said that you do something and then wait, and then the bot takes care of that. So that's the thing over here. The other difference, which is not very commonly talked about, but I want to call that out, is attended one, sign in isn't required because the automation assumes that the system is already signed in, which means that when you're going ahead and you are already into your laptop, your machine, you will not require any sign in because you are already there. However, in the unattended, one of the key requirements for that unattended is that not only do you need to just log off, I mean, not just do a control alt delete and get out, you need to actually sign out of your operating system. Sign out means you haven't powered it down, you just have signed it out. And only then does the unattended work, which means that that bot needs to have its own sign-in access. Right now, as we stand, the bot needs, I mean, the robotic process RPA needs what's called as local administrative access on your machine. It may not mean much to us because all of our laptops usually come with that anyway. Your user, you've got access to install something, you've got access to uninstall something. That basically tells you you've got local administrative access. But some of the companies and with their laptops that are deployed to you, the IT of that company may not favor that access level. So you may not have that. But just keep in mind that if you're going to use the unattended robotic process automation system, that installation, that account which is there, it needs to have local admin access. And if you don't get that, that's completely fine. Just some important things that I want to throw out over here. All right, so let's kind of move forward. And when I talk about this licensing piece over here, I'm not focusing too much on how much this costs, but it's important to know what you already may have or what you need. So believe it or not, to start using those attended flows, the one which you have the human interaction with, you might already have the license for that. So if you either have the full Power Apps per user or the Power Automate for user license, then you already have the ability to go ahead and use this attended flows. So that's why with this type of, to do the attended one, with that flow, you are able to do run flows. You can go ahead and do run business process flows, desktop ones in the attended mode. But your existing Power Apps per user or Power Automate per user does not come with the unattended flow. For the unattended flow, that does require a little extra licensing. So let's actually take a look at what that licensing is and some ideas for that. So you right over here again in the attended one, if you want to just go ahead and use, buy a separate attended license, then this is what it costs, like $40 per user per month. You can go and do it this way. However, if you want to go ahead and now, do the unattended one, Well, there is a different licensing plan assigned for that. So let me actually show you right here. The unattended robotic process automation. Well, that will cost you $150 per bot per month. Now, depending on what your company is, some people this amount doesn't bother them, and for some people this does. So I actually have another option as well, and it's not so much as the cost, but it's the option of pay as you go. I personally use pay as you go a lot for my own learning. All the demos that I've done over here, all the trainings that I've done over here are all running on the pay as you go, because I do want to go ahead and use the unattended bot, but I don't want to pay that $150 per bot per month. So what I do is I go ahead and do a unattended one. I mean, a pay as you go, which is basically called something called as Azure subscription. We are all familiar with the term subscription. Subscriptions means you pay for some that service on a monthly basis. We do things for such as Hulu and Netflix and all that. That's a subscription. Amazon services. That's a subscription. That's the same concept over there. You go ahead and do a subscription based, where I say I am going to go ahead and pay for this per flow for the attended or the per flow for the unattended, and this is how much it will cost me. But I can also put a cap to it, that on my Azure services, I'm going to say that I'm just put a cap of anytime it hits, say, $30, send me an alert. Anytime it goes, it hits, and the limit should always be, say, $50 or something. What you could also do is put a cap where, it is, say, $100. Because if you start hitting that $150, well, then it might work best that you actually go and pay for that full license. So I just don't want you to be alarmed by the cost of that, because you can go through this route as well. In fact, a lot of my Azure, you might be in the situation as you, if you work for a company and you get these Azure credits. Even if you go and subscribe for these Azure services, sometimes you get anywhere from $100 to $150 to $300 these Azure credits, which means that you might already have enough to start playing and learning these things, and to some extent start using as well, that you don't need to pay any additional one. So I just call this out because I don't want you to think about the concerns of how much it's going to cost to start using it. You might already be paying for it, or you already have all the tools ready to start using that. All right,
Hey,
cool.
Daniel, quick question. Is it pretty easy to set up those like price notifications?
You mean the subscriptions?
Yeah, like the subscription
Yeah,
notifications, like,
it
hey, I'm
is.
doing pay as you go.
Yeah,
And
talk to your well, if you already have an IT team, those are the best people you want to go talk to, because I've seen different companies do it different way. One people have this one Azure, single Azure subscription, and then you can just go and say, hey, can I just go ahead and use that subscription with the pay as you go, and they'll be just fine. Bigger companies, break it down based on line of businesses. It's very simple and straightforward. Honestly, they just go ahead and set up a subscription for you, and then you get that subscription information. You got to actually get what is that and assign that to Power Automate to at an environment level. So you do your job, you create a separate environment, and environments are, like different, like how we have SharePoint, we have different sites, or you have a big house, which is your Power Platform, and then each rooms are different environments. Same concept over here. Like you will have to have a environment dedicated to pay as you go. You can't do it at a flow level. You have to do it at an environment level. So it's always a help.
that is key. That is
That
a
is
key
key.
thing to know.
Yeah, that is.
And environments, we have this conversation a lot, like the whole center of excellence, right? Like to be able to have
Right.
monitoring over environments, automation toolkit too, I think is one people are using more. But what a great call out of saying at the environment level, this is a thing to know and to work with IT. I didn't even know that. So that's a really key thing for the group here.
Yep. Yeah, it is at an environment level. I've had discussions about, why can't you do it right at the flow level? They have taken that feedback. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. But if I look at it, it's also from a governance standpoint. It's very easy to handle environment levels as against app levels. So if you have an environment, you dedicated the pay as you go to that environment, then that environment can actually be owned by somebody, and then they can also handle all of the apps and the flows which are also using the pay as you go. So from a governance standpoint, environment level is very easy to manage. From an end user standpoint, sometimes it gets a little, it's like, man, I wish I only had pay as you go tied to this one flow and everything else would be fine, because I don't want to keep spinning out different environments. So It all depends on who you talk to. I'm fine with both. Environment level makes it easier for me to handle all of these environments. But again, it is an option available, and so you can go and use that. So here's just a quick snapshot of this Power Automate for desktop application. I'm going to actually go in and show you that. But this is basically what it looks like, and we'll take a look at more of this thing. And then I also want to spend some time doing this demo. So these are basically the 4 demos that I'm going to do. We'll fire up
Really
the
quick,
console.
Daniel, before we go forward, we had a question, and I don't know if there's one that you suggest or if you have one yourself. But
Okay.
Alexander asked, is there a good blog post on licensing specifically for Power Automate? And Ed, if you have one, please chime in.
I don't get near licensing at all. Maybe Daniel does.
Yeah, I actually there's a licensing. Um, the best way I found out detail licensing is pretend like you're going and getting yourself license certified. Just search for Power Automate license certifications. It's a free certification that you do. You go and sign in there, but they've got these PDF files over there. And they do Microsoft does a great job updating those PDF files. It summarizes in like 2 pages long how these licenses work. So that's actually one of my best recommended ones. And I do that for across the entire Power Platform family, all 5 members. Like if you want just, quick information, but important information of how much does it cost, pretend like you're taking that licensing, certification, which is the free certification. And when you sign in, you will get these videos and places to watch. And over there, you get nice PDF files that gives you quick information about all of these licenses and how much they cost. If you have some time, I'll show you that in the end.
Daniel would
Um,
love to get those links because I've never heard of that either, and that is gold right there.
it is, and
For individual.
they keep that updated too. Because when I've been
What?
redoing, yeah, I'm licensed for I'm certified for all these Power Platform licensing because I take those exams on a regular basis, and I've noticed that PDF file gets updated really well. And I have seen a lot of these, like the Microsoft Learning website, which is there, and they've got all those, modules and everything. This learning for licensing has got the best content, honestly, and it's across everything. Full
I'm saving my
M365,
excitement.
Azure.
That is
Yeah,
amazing. I'm
yeah.
gonna shut up. Let's get through
So
this demo because I can't wait to see that.
yeah, if you find, I'll show it to you. Yeah. So quick demos, we're going to overview. I'm going to overview the console with you, and then we'll show you some demos. I've got these examples. The PDF file creator was actually one of our friends, MVP friends, asked me to do that. She said, "Can we?" Because if you use the Power Automate cloud one. The word connector is actually a premium one, and that's been difficult for people to use. They say, "Hey, how can I do it through Power Automate for desktop with the Word document with actual the Word application?" So I built this for them. Second example, UPS tracking information was actually a real world proof of concept we did, and I'll tell you more about that. And the third one is the file cluster cleanup. Again, another real world example. So we'll go through all of these, and let's actually just jump in. So here is now my Windows 11 operating system. Good thing about Power Automate for desktop is that the Power Automate for desktop is native to Windows 11 operating system, which means if you've got a brand new Windows 11 operating system and you come down over here and you just do a search for, Power Automate, your best match will directly be Power Automate. However, I do want to call out one thing. Power Automate for the native one that comes in, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles in it. It's not the full fidelity version, which is why I personally recommend that if you're going to start doing these type of things, especially doing the attended and the unattended ones and all of that, go ahead and get a fresh copy. And I don't even recommend the Windows app. Actually, just go open up your a browser directly. Just let's pretend we're going over there and search for Microsoft Power Automate for yes, Power Automate for desktop software, and you search for that. Yep. And when you go and do that, you'll actually come to this process over here, installation of the Power Automate for desktop, the learning piece. And right over there, you'll see this, download the Power Automate installer. That will actually go and give you the full file. And that is what you want to go and install. That will give you the full desktop application, Power Automate for desktop. And that takes care of everything. Going ahead and to install it, to do the attended, unintended, gives you all of that information over there. So Now, I had actually brought this to Microsoft's attention, and we had a whole email chain going on. They said that the next releases of it, where you can go and just download that from the Windows 11 App Store, or the native one in the operating system, should have everything else. So they may have fixed that. But if we experience that, some of my flows are not running, or I'm not able to do other stuff, that's because the native one in Windows 11 is just lightweight. It doesn't have everything. And the ability to download that is free. You can go and download that software. So that's what I've been doing, is I just go and get the full version from that. So you go ahead and open it. You search for it, click on it, you open it up, and this is what the initial one looks like. Now, initially when you open it up, you will be right over here in the home page. And the home option over here, this home, was actually fairly new. Before, all they had was directly My Flows. Like, you didn't have this tab for home. It was directly My Flows. This option for home was directly from the cloud side. Because on the cloud side, you had this thing for home. You had the ability to come in and just see what's the latest information going on over here. You've got this banner, which you can go and collapse or expand it. Gives you all of this understanding of, hey, here is some new information available, some examples, some tutorials, any updates that they have, like what's new. So they really felt that the home tab was necessary, was very effective and successful on the cloud ones. So when they went there and added that as well, I'm a big fan of that. Um, Other things is that, let's go and actually take a look over here. You are already, if you're building desktop, cloud flows, you're familiar with this, that we've got the ability to go ahead and get all the environments that you have access to on your Power Platform, either it's Power Apps or Power Automate or Power Virtual Agents. You see that over here as well. These are the exact same environments. These are the environments that you have access to. And so you see that. Now, it's because that I am in this pay-as-you-go subscription environment, I also get this little diamond and a banner over here saying that, hey, this environment is covered by your organization as pay-as-you-go, and you can use all the premium capabilities available over there. Now, if I were to go and say select any of my other environments, say I just select this environment doesn't have the pay-as-you-go set up over there. So therefore, when this environment loads up, this actually doesn't have any desktop flow, so you'll see this completely blank, but you don't see that banner over here. So it's pretty neat that when you set up that pay-as-you-go for an environment level, it tells you, hey, this environment is good to go. You've got everything set up over here, so you don't have to worry about it. All the subscriptions and everything are set up over there. So I really like this, overall look and feel on this side. So that's on the environment side. Settings, you've got a few more options over there. The auto start application is not turned on by default. But I have also seen scenarios of companies who have really invested in this. So they will actually go ahead and have specific machines built to do automation. And over there, when they are building images for those machines, when they do the installation, they also go and have this box checked so that when the machines boot up, they directly have that application up and running. Other neat things that I like is over here, stop the running flow with hotkeys. You've got your own option now that you can do a Control Shift Alt and then change it to any one of these things. I like that they've given you that flexibility. Windows notification is needed. In fact, you will see some examples that we're going to do. So you've got different types of Windows notifications, and then you've got the option to go ahead and check for updates. It basically, I keep this, it's on by default, the check updates, and it really helps to at least give me what's going on. Collect data collection is something that you might already be very familiar with. Many companies do this, that they want to collect optional diagnostic usage, basically see how you're using, which will help them to improve it or something. If you're comfortable with it, go ahead and allow them to do that by checking on the box. But if you want, if you're someone like me, I'm more of a cautiously optimistic person. I just left that as unchecked because at the end of the day, it is my information and I don't like to share that publicly. So that's what I've done over here. So this is now what we come into the overall landing page of the the software. All this section is something that you would actually be familiar with because the cloud one is like that. You come and look at your flows, and these are all the flows that I have built. So they are my flows. Moment you go ahead and share this, they will move away from the my flows and they go and sit in the shared flows over here. So this is you're familiar with. This was already there on the cloud side. But the improvements that I've seen is on the examples. And this examples is actually growing by leaps and bounds. There were only 3 when I initially started working on these, and it's actually growing. But I just love that when you click, like, for example, Excel automation is a great one to go in. You click on it, and they tell you that, okay, this is a beginner level, this is an intermediate, this is an advanced one. And if you're someone like me, I learn a lot by reverse engineering. Like, I've always gone ahead and taken templates, both for apps and flows, and I just see how does this work? Like, how are the formulas there? How are these triggers working? So that's basically what I would do is I would go and click on it and see how this works. But what I want you to focus on is one thing, is you see all the different varieties. So it's something for everyone, where if you are just an everyday desktop power user who does Excel automation stuff, and works with PDF and everything, then Power Automate Desktop is for you. If you are one of those persons where you are constantly on websites grabbing information from that, you're one of those, type of not just desktop applications but browser-based person, well, then Power Automate is for you. If you are an IT professional where you are doing automation work by scripting either on desktops or on servers, Power Automation is for you because you can go ahead and do all of that with Power Automation for desktop. And nobody ever said that Power Automate for desktop software only runs on your Windows 10 or 11 operating system. It will run on your servers as well. So you've got so many options for a wide variety of people, not just tied to those people who've got legacy applications. There is really a really wide variety of them, right from the IT professionals to the power users to browser-based people. Bunch of examples over there. Highly recommend you go in there and do some reverse engineering so you can start familiar with it. Cool. So let's go now and I just want you to get in and take a look at what we call as the main console. So to do that, you come and click on this plus new flow, and this pop-up comes in. Now, we are familiar with this pop-up that comes up, or this initial window that comes up even on the cloud flows, but there's one difference. On the cloud flows, when you go and create one, over there, you have to do 2 things. Give a flow name, and you have to pick a trigger. Like, what is it that is triggering that? And it could be, if you're triggering it based on a schedule, the time, or if you're triggering it based on somebody added a new row item to SQL, like there's a trigger for that, something which is telling the flow to start. On the desktop ones, that is not the case. You don't need a trigger. So all you have to do is basically give a flow name, and then you go and click on create. The cloud flow also had the option where you actually do not even need to create it over there. You can go inside the flow and create it. Not the case over here. You've got to go ahead and give it a name and come in. So here now we are into what's called as the Power Automate for Desktop console. Like, this is where all the magic happens. So I like to break this down into 5 different sections. There is the actions. There's the place where you actually build the flow. On the right side, you've got all these things such as the variables. You can, variables, UI, user interface elements, and the images. And then on the bottom, you've got all of these other important properties of the flow. And then you've got another section on the top. So let's actually work with the one on the left. Honestly, this is where all the magic kind of happens because there's so many different types of actions available. And all of these will basically be actions. You will not find triggers. Triggers is what's on the cloud flow. On the desktop flow, it's all about actions. And there is a wide variety of actions. Some of them you will get familiar with really fast are things such as variables. Um, in Power Automate for desktop, at the end of the day, there's actually 3 different types of variables. There is a simple one, which is a set variable. So if you just click on it, drag it and drop it, you see that this is the variable where you're going and assigning a value to it, a single value, and that's it. So that's the concept of the set variable. And then the moment you come over here and you click on it, drop it, it will give you a variable name and it will automatically assign it. So you can go and change that. I can go in. My way of making variables is I always put in the var prefix. So I put in a var test and I'll put in this one over here. And then it goes and clicks on save. And now I've actually got my variable assigned. So if I go back to this images, you will see that this is a flow variable. After that, there is also something that is tied. It is called as your list one. So in the list one, create a new list. This is slightly different. The list, as the name suggests, that you've got basically one column. That's all it is. It's a list. And so if you've already guessed there's a list, well, then there is also the data table. Data table gives you ability to go and create a full table, which means it has rows, it has columns, and you can go ahead and build it as much as you want. You can go and add the data. Like these variables, even though inside the variables, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the end of the day, there's only 3 variables type. All right. So that's important thing.
Hey,
And this is
Daniel,
something,
real quickly, we're
yeah.
getting a question of, I know it is possible to write to SQL Server, the SQL Server connector using Power Automate. Is it possible to perform CRUD operations to SQL Server with Power Automate Desktop?
The answer to that is yes, but you use what is called as the SQL OData queries. The same type of OData queries that you would go and use using a SQL connection in Excel, exact same concept. You're able to go and do that through Power Automate for desktop as well. Yep. No, that's a good question. You are able to do that as well.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Yep.
I know.
So yeah, when we so the variables is one of them. Loops is another big one. You've got different types of loops for each the loop itself conditions, and I'll show you some demos of that. And then another one that I use a lot. I use it a lot because I'm teaching it. But the ones that you might also use a lot is the messages. Like there's different types of messages. There is just a simple one to display the message. And let's think about this out of the box what it does, because say if you are a Power Apps Canvas app type of a person, right? If you want to go and create a message box, there's some work involved. Like you would either go ahead and get a text or a label type of control. You would have to get 2 buttons over there. You would have to do a on select or on submit of that button. There's some work involved. But over here on the display message, it's basically just this functionality. And you've got different options. Like, what is the message? Is it just none? Or is it of an information, question, warning, error? By the way, based on any of these ones that you select, the background noise changes a little bit. That also is there. Then you can go ahead and say, what type of buttons do I want? Like first, second, third button, default ones. And then after that, you've got this functionality is that keep message boxes always on the top. By the way, this is pretty standard for all of them. And it's a very important one too, because think about the situation where you are using this on a date. Your computer. You've already been 6 hours into the computer. You've got a few applications open, and you've got a few windows open in each applications. If you want the display functionality to supersede all these applications, you always want to have that button on. Is a toggle it so that keep message box always on the top. Very important piece over there. But then the message buttons itself, like, you've got these options. There's okay and cancel, yes and no, yes, no, cancel. Like every possible thing that even I could think of, I have it right over here. Is this message one? But what I like though is even such a thing as the display the messages one, even options such as going ahead and like the file one. I want to go ahead and get a file or write a file. These are not like the ones you see on the cloud side. Like I said, Power Apps, when you select something to open up, it's a very browser based. So all that functions of pop-ups coming up, the functions of you adding a file, it's a very browser based. But these messages are happening directly on your operating system. It's not happening because of this Power Automate for desktop app open. I could keep the app closed running in the back end, but it's the operating system that will go ahead and do the noise, or that will go ahead and actually have the pop-up messages. So the key takeaway I want you from this is that the Power Automate for desktop is so deeply integrated with your operating system, and it has to be, because only until it is that deep can it perform all of these things. Like you can go ahead and actually run scripts on your local machines. If any of you are desktop type of people, built your own desktops and everything, the term desktop variables, you can manipulate desktop variables. Like that's deep operating system using your Power Automate for desktop. It's really deep and really integrated over here. So we talked about the actions. Now talk about the flows. So in Power Automate for desktop, there's 2 types of flows. There is the main flow, and then there's a subflow. Subtle difference there is because in the cloud one, we've got child flows. Desktop one, there is the subflows. So by default, your main flow is also a possible is type of a subflow. And then over here, you can go and click on it and create more subflows. And then the more, once I click on it, it'll actually open up another tab. I'll just click on save. It'll open up another tab. Now you'll see another option show up over here. And then you can go and manipulate that as well. And you can trigger flows one from the other one, similar to what we have in the cloud. So, but this is where all the magic happens. And a lot of things is basically just dragging, dropping, manipulating it. As you go and start building all of this, functionality, it's easy. You can take it, drag it, drop it around. As long as there's no dependency between step one and step two, you've got all of that functionality. And then when you're starting to add all of these things, the bottom one also says like, hey, which one is selected? Is one action selected, or is there two actions? See, there's two actions. I'm holding the shift button down now. I'm selecting one, two, and three, like that. It's telling you all of that. How many actions there are, how many subflows, do you want to put any delay on the flowing per actions? Like you'd have all that control right here on the footer side of it. On the right side are also some very important ones. First things first is the variables. So there's two types of variables. There is the input output variable, and then there's the flow variables. Input output variable is basically the first thing before the flow has actually even started, you need to provide that desktop flow some information. That's your input variable. And then there's also the other ops on the flip side where everything has been done and now it is providing your final information. Well, that's your output variable. So input output variables, this is where you can go and come and create. You click on in, and now you can go and create your input variable, and you've got some data type options over here. See, this is where you can go and create all that information. And you can start putting all that. So that's basically the whole concept of variables. Another neat thing I like about these variables is you can go and when you start running the flow, when a value is assigned to that variable, you'll start to see that value show up over here, which is actually pretty neat. Because if you notice on the cloud flows, you don't really get to see that information. So that's why people like you and me will have a compose action, and the compose action we put the data so we can actually see what that data is. Over here on the desktop flow, it just shows you those variables. But there might be a situation where that information might be a little private and you don't want to share it even when you are testing it. So you can always basically just come over there and you can go and just hide it, and then it won't show you the data. So that's neat things over here. All right, UI elements. UI elements or user interface elements is very important when you are starting to use what's called as the recorder functionality. Uh, Recorder functionality earned my respect really fast. Just one downfall I see over here is it's super sensitive. So let me show you what that is. When you click on the recorder, and by the way, if any of you are Excel, that VB scripting type of person who have done this will feel so natural to you, because remember in Excel, when you're building those macros, you can record those macros. This is the exact same concept. You go ahead and basically click on the record button, and now I can, if I want to click on that, like my first step should be, I want to go ahead and open up that edge. So if I just go and hover on that and double click on it, see, it recorded that action. That the action was double click on Microsoft Edge. After that, you could go ahead and say, I'm going to click on money. So it'll actually record all of those things. And then after that, if I'm done, when I'm done, it now goes and says, okay, it first of all puts a comment that, hey, this was started of an auto-generated action using a recorder, and then it ended, and it tells me what those are. But see the UI elements, it's recording what is it that I touched. It shows you that user interface element. It's like a really detailed way that it shows you. And even on the money, it's telling me, where exactly was Daniel going and focusing on that money, on the money image, and it shows you that. I love this. It's very easy for me to start troubleshooting it. But what's more important is how it is able to automatically and so easily get this. Because if any of you are hard coding developers, you know that to go ahead and just get, sorry, this one here, to find out what that is difficult. Let me explain what I mean. So if you go over here directly to, on more tools, and then you go and get the developer tools, and I'm going to now turn on so I can actually see what it is. See my money over here. If I click on it, this is basically, it is a class A control, of all of this index, and it is giving you this detailed information. All of this information, by the way, is automatically picked up by that Power Automate for Desktop behind the scenes. You don't need to know any of that. All you need to know is that it's went ahead and grabbed that information that you wanted in the desktop flow, and it's gone ahead and already captured it, and all you have to do is go in and actually take a look at it. So if I were to now click on any one of these things, see, it went and captured that. What was the attribute? You see the one on the browser I just showed you, the attribute name, the ID name, where you went and selected all of that. It picked up all of that information thanks to the recorder, and then it also tells you what was the image. Like, this is pretty deep information, and it's making it look a lot easier. But I want to prove that point to you that if you were to manually somehow through some coding magic do it, you would need to go in that developer level to find out what is that tag that you clicked on. But the recorder automatically goes and pulls that up. And you still have the option to go and see how detailed it is. And if that piece just goes overhead, don't worry about it, because IT. I mean, I call myself as a citizen developer. I am not a coder. My initial job was racking and stacking servers. Like, I come from an infrastructure standpoint, so I'm not a developer. Therefore, something like this is very pleasing to my eye. More I play with it, the more I get familiar with it. But when I was understanding what this UI element was, I did some reading up, and that's when I understood that, man, this is actually putting it at a developer level, all in the back end. The recorder is my personal favorite, but like I said, it had to earn my respect because it is very sensitive. So if you accidentally click on something twice, or while you're just hovering on something too, it'll wait and catch and say that, hey, you were on this for a few seconds. So it's very common for you to record, and then afterwards you come back and do some cleaning up. It's very common for that. And I don't have a single flow where the entire flow is built using only the recorder. It's always been a combination of me adding my own actions and then also using the recorder. And as you can see over here, for some reason, the recorder came right on the top. So I can always go and change that. I can always go and select that, or I can highlight all of these ones in and grab it down. You can always go and do that tweaking. Right, and then the final piece I want to show you here is the image capture. You've got the ability to go and now capture images as well. So I can do a full capture of that image of whatever that is, save it. So I'm going to say that is a shared with me IMG, and I'll save it. And now you've also captured that image over there. Just flexibility for you to go and decide how I want to do the recording, where I'm going and clicking. All of that is available at these levels, either at the variable ones to go ahead and do at the user interface, or just grab the images on that. So these are basically those 5 different sections of the console. The console is where the magic happens, and I like to break it down into these 5 different areas just so that you get familiar with this overall thing. Any question on this?
Not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay.
If anybody wants to come off mute, questions?
And that's fine. What we'll do is we'll jump into some of the demos that I have. So I'm going to close. And by the way, one thing is that when you start creating a flow, it opens up a different window. So right here, you see, this is basically our overall Power Automate for desktop software. But when you create another flow, it actually opens up a whole different window section of it. So it doesn't just replace what it is. So you can have multiple windows open if you want to see side-by-side ones. It really helps on that side. Okay, so I'm going to say, I don't want to save it. I want to make sure that I follow. Okay, PDF file creator. Okay, this is a really neat one. So the PDF file creator was actually a request that came in. So let's go and take a look at it from the inside. I click on the pencil, it goes into the editing mode, and now it opens up this way. The request was that the person is actually who's building it. They have a process to automatically create a PDF document, like an invoice or something. All right. And so they were able to currently use the cloud flows, but that word a connector was premium. That's one thing, which didn't bother a whole lot of people. But then using it was a little bit more difficult, a little bit more not very intuitive. So it said that, can we create this using the desktop one? Because people are more familiar with that. So I said we could do that. So here is basically a flow that I created where now a user has to come and fill in a form, and then information from that form is taken, and it'll automatically go and open up Word, populate that in a Word template that we have created, and then it does a save as to a PDF file. It does it all automatically. Now think about that situation. you could actually use this where somebody is now filling up a form for whatever purchase that they've done, or some certification that they want, or some certificate that they want. Instead of you opening up that Word document and hoping that people go ahead and fill it properly. So here's basically what that Word document would look like. If I can go and where are you by Word document? Yeah, right here. This is where, oh, I think I moved it. Let me, yeah, that's right. No, that's a very, where did it go? My Word document. We should be able to pull that back directly on my example here. Oh boy, I might have to move it again. It should hopefully, well, actually, you know what? I know I can find it. It has that information right here. Right there, it'll go and open this up. The demo Power Platform donations form. Okay, the demo Power Platform. Right there, demo, and then the Power Platform donations. So it's in my D documents, in my demo, and then in Power Platform right over here, donations one. So this is basically my, the example of the PDF template that I have. I'll share a tip with you over here. When you're creating these type of PDF templates, use tables. I've actually done it. This is a table that I put in over here because when the recorder comes in, it will basically go ahead and capture this entire cell of that table and makes it very easy for the recording piece to happen. So I'm sharing some tip over here that when you're building this type of functionality, use a table, and that it makes it easier. But this is basically that PDF file which is going to use. So what I'm going to do is now let's go ahead and run this flow, and you will see what happens. All right. So I can actually go and now close this off altogether, and I'm going to go and click on play. All right, and just make sure everything's closed. All right, click on play. So when it's clicking on the play and it's running, it tells me on the bottom right, see that it is your flow has triggered. But now this message comes up. This is got to call as the custom form. It falls under that message category. Remember the messages I was showing you? It falls in this message category. So here now, I'm going to go and start putting in some information. This is something very easy for people who are coming in, maybe your customers or even your admins. It's very easy to fill this up as against filling up that Word document, because over there, you might click something wrong. It might not make sense to do that. Filling up a form is a lot more easier. So that's what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fill up my information. I think my battery is dying or something. There's a delay in my typing on my keyboard.
The demo gods, they're
I
here.
know
They are
something is
alive.
happening.
Always.
There's a delay that's happening over here. It could be my battery dying. I'll go and put in test@contoso.com. Address, I'll put that in as, see, come on, you can do this. All right, let me try test@contoso.com. Address, I'll put in 123 Microsoft Way, Redmond. State will be Washington. I'm not sure what the zip code is. I'm going to call that as 5. Gift amount is going to be 100. 100 donation for a youth group, and the company I'm going to call it as Christian Family Consulting Services Incorporated. Okay, filled up all of this, and now I'm going to click on submit. It opens up, and by the way, my hands are over here. I do this a lot when I'm talking. My hands are up over here. It automatically opened up the Word document. It's taking the information that we filled in, and it's populating it over here automatically. My hands are still up. This is not me doing it. It fills all this
Daniel,
information.
you've got somebody there with you, right? Like they're on the keyboard.
No.
You've got your kid there. He's like
Yeah.
doing this.
See, it takes the information from the form for your file name, stores it as a PDF file, and then it's already telling me that I have a file over there because I just demoed it. I was testing the demos. I'm going to click on OK. And basically, if it was completely automated, it would go ahead and do all of this. It would even go ahead and see on the top right, it's going in, and it'll go and close it. Like it's fully automated to create that Word document. Obviously, we had an error for whatever reason. But you see, the whole process was completely automated to create your Word document. This is it. This is that Word document that we created. It is whatever it could be. It could be an invoice. It could be a certificate. Like we built the template, and now the Power Automate for desktop, we had a form over there. The form was easier to fill up, much more easier than adding this thing over here. And then once it's done, it's the form is created. So much more easier for your administrative teams, or if you're even going ahead and handing over. If people come in to do stuff, create a certificate, go ahead and do other things, instead of them filling out a piece of paper and then your admin going and filling up, just the admin just says, just fill up this form. And that's the form, which is that custom message that we did. And the moment they hit OK, the desktop flow just runs. It creates all of that. It was actually a real world scenario that I had taken. So I was able to go ahead and replicate that piece over here. But let's continue. I want to show you the next example is the UPS tracking information, another real world scenario, and I like to talk about that too. So I'm going to come over here, and this is get updates of multiple tracking one. There's this one company where this one office admin, her job, especially during the holiday season, was to take all these tracking numbers, go to the UPS website, and the tracking numbers one was a very simple spreadsheet. So she would go to the website sometimes few times a day and just get the status of the tracking numbers. And it was really hectic during the holiday season. So we said, let's do proof of concept. Because when I was talking to her, I said my wheels were already turning. I said, because she showed me what she did, which means it was recordable. It was one thing. But I use some common sense. I'm also very down to earth. Like, hey, there's fun, but then there's realistic. Like, how real can this be? So when she walked me through it and she was showing me, I said, you know what, we can actually replicate this. So this is one of the scenarios where I did have a main flow, and then I had a subflow. The subflow basically just goes ahead, and once I have that information, the tracking number, the tracking number I get from the spreadsheet, it does all these other sub steps. It will launch a Microsoft Edge browser, goes straight to this URL of ups.com, and then puts the information, scraps the data from there, and then it'll go ahead and redo that as many times. So what I want to show you is basically where is this information. So let me go back to our Power Automate, go to our Power Automate desktop, go to my demo, and right over here is the UPS tracking numbers. So see, this is the type of spreadsheet that she had. It had tracking numbers, status, date, and time. And she would go in, get like manually copy the tracking number from here, go to the UPS website and just get the status. And if it was whatever was the status, also get the date and time number. We automated this whole thing over here. So I want to demo this to you, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and now close this off. And then I'll go ahead and do a run. Again, my hands up. Okay, it's going in and preparing it, and it started. Now I was building this as the demos is telling you what each of the steps are. Okay, now it's going to get a count of all the tracking numbers. All right, so that's the step number 2. It goes and creates a variable because I want to keep count of all the rows. Step number 3. Now the loop will start of going in and getting the tracking number. So on the bottom, I saw that Excel spreadsheet just opened up on the bottom. It also went and grabbed that first spreadsheet, so first tracking number, injected that directly into it, shows me the message. It scrapped it from the UPS website. But there were 2 tracking numbers. So now the second one comes in, puts it over there. It waits for the loading to get done. It will scrap the information as best as it can. And then it went and closed it as well. And then after that, the flow got completed. Ultimate test, though, is let's go to that website, the spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, see, it went and grabbed for the first one. There was a delay because if you notice the site was loading, we can fix that later on by adding some delays to it. But this wasn't there before. It was empty. Now, automatically, through the Power Automate for desktop, for each tracking number, we were able to get the status and we were able to get the date and time using that flow that I created automatically. Do you know how much time this saved her? Because it was completely automated. And the great thing was we did not have to build anything from scratch. Like she was able to record some of the steps, and we were able to just build it on the fly over here. This is a really powerful tool that was a great proof of concept on that one. And then the last demo that I want to show you is actually one of those things as cleaning up clutter. And when I posted this on Twitter, and so I have a video on this also up over there. One person came up to me, responded back, and said, "Why would I use Power Automate for desktop? I could do this so much more faster using Power Automate by using a command prompt script." Well, remember, not all of us are IT professionals. We can't do scripting, and also in this example over here, I've shown it only a few amounts because people could say, I could do this manually because what the process I'm trying to do is clean up this clutter that is here by actually going ahead and finding files that make sense and putting them into these folders that I have, which should clean it up a little. So anything that has to do with a document type, all right, like there's a contract over here, there's introduction, like these type of document types for Word, go ahead and dump it in Word. Anything that is an image, that's a JPEG or JPG, go ahead and drop that in the images folder. You see PowerPoint type of stuff, drop it into the presentation. Anything spreadsheet, drop it into spreadsheets. Any videos, drop it over there. And if for some reason none of these categories fall or match, put it in the catch-all. So this is basically how that cleanup works over here. This is the I think we have to repeat a simple loop. I think that was the one over here. Oh, no, I think it's this one. I should have named it a little better. Let me go in and see. I used the switch one. So it's loading.
While this is loading, Daniel, I don't know if this got bubbled up, but
No, that's
Larry
fine.
was asking, how do you handle a website that requires login?
It's one of those common questions that I get asked a lot. Actually, it's
I'm
this one over
sure.
here. I'll answer that at the end. It is a
Okay.
question that I get asked a lot. So this is basically that flow which I went and did. For this one, I used something called as the inside the for each loop. I use a switch statement. Switch is basically go to this place and then based on what you see over there, each and all of these cases are handled. So mine is the switches to go in to that folder, right? The folder which has all that clutter of the files. And then after that, if the cases, if it's an MP4 type of file, move it to the videos folder. If it is also a movie type of file, MOV, move it to this folder. A neat thing that I like about Power Automate for desktop is it's got the copy functionality. Another neat thing is that when you're doing these type of switch and cases, I had multiple cases. So you added the case, you added an action, just collapse it. Then you go ahead and either right click any copy or you can click on the ls and copy, and then you just paste it. So it was building this went a lot faster. I was able to go ahead and now build all these cases much faster and just tweak the file extensions. So this is basically it. Instead of for each, I did a switch. So watch this now. I'm going to close this off. I want to actually put this a little bit to the right, and I'll show you that I'm going to run this right now, and you watch, this thing will start getting cleaned up, right? So I'm going to, and it works when you close the flow and you just run it, it works really fast too. So watch, I'm going to go and now run it. It has started running, the flow is running, and it's giving me an error on one of these things. As you can see, some of them have already started moving up. I'm not sure what that error was on switch case for inside, but overall, you saw that it was able to clean up a bunch of these. Let's actually go and see which error it came up. This is not running. If I go in and run on that again, either way, you get the idea. Something is, there's a catch-all. It picked up on the catch-all. It picked up on the docs. One of them was not working, probably the flow file extension. Either way, but you get the idea. Okay, this is basically how I can do and clean up. An example that I've saw for this one is cleaning up desktop, like a wallpaper clutter. That is the place where you can do some cleaning up. So you could actually have a folder over here with subfolders in it if you want, and that's the place where you can go and start doing some, cleaning up over there. It might be a fun type of example, but it's a good example of using the for all and the switch case in it. But another real world scenario could be you have a specific folder, say on a server location or a file server, where files get dropped by some kind of system. There is a drop-in folder, and then based on the file, you can go ahead and drop it into another location, either in the same server or a file extension. You can do it all of these things. Again, we are not IT professionals. We don't have that kind of scripting or macro building functionality. This type of functionality runs really well, and you can schedule it. You can go and tweak it yourself, trigger it yourself. All of those repetitive, mundane tasks can be handled very easily with stuff like this. All right. So let me just make sure I go back to my slide deck because we covered those ones. Yeah, all right. So let me answer that question about the passwords. If you have that password to put in, it is very doable. Only thing is when you're building the flow, you want to go ahead and save that password upfront as an input variable. So initially, you can go ahead and have that input variable. That input variable basically could be like, what is your username? What is the password? So users can actually go ahead and put in their username and a password before the flow gets created. I recommend it this way so that you're not saving the data inside the flow, like using one of these variables. You're not saving it because let's face it, username and passwords can change depending on your company. Either it's 90 days or 120 days. Some companies will do it 30 days. So you don't want to save a one-time in, but you can go ahead and put in as an input variable, and they'll basically be two simple variables. One will be it's a is a var for username, like that, and then there'll be another, and that'll get actually saved over there. So you can click on save that. And then the other one will be, and by the way, for if you don't want people to see the password username too, mark it as sensitive. So even when the flow is running, you might be sharing this and demoing this to some people, whatever, you can hide it, and then get another one for your the var password. This is basically the way that I recommend, such that the user. So this will be basically a attended flow. Users will have to go and submit their username and password, but then they don't have to worry about it, that the password is saved in the flow or someplace. It is not. And it also takes care of those situations where passwords get saved. It will go ahead and actually do that somewhere else, save it over there. And so once the password is saved, when you come to that action, you can go ahead and basically, use that information, and put it in. Just like that example of that UPS tracking one, the data was actually getting extracted. The tracking numbers were coming from that spreadsheet. Same concept over here. The username will come from that the variable that you assign, and then the password will come over there. A great example for that is if you're going to a website, then use the recorder for that. Then it'll actually capture where you put in the username, where you put in the password, and it'll take that information. Here's another. I'll just add on to that question. I was doing this demo. Oh, it was at the Austin user group meeting, and one guy was asking, "Hey, how do I handle uh, service accounts that have the multi-factor authentication? The RSA tokens that you can actually have desktop apps. You got to open that up. The token will refresh every 30 seconds. How do I do that? Where I can go and grab that 6-pin or 8-pin or 9-pin number, and then go and put that in and get a password. Like, how do I do that?" Um, I thought about that for a while. For me, when I heard something like that, immediate red flags went up. Like I said, that this is not automation. This is hacking. You don't want to do stuff like that, because it could present itself as something like that. But in a situation like this, what do you do? That is a scenario where you go ahead and talk to your Azure admins, because they can actually go and say that, hey, if a machine is already in your company's designated IP addresses, especially if you're VPNing in, or you've got designated IP addresses for each of your company locations. For those type of authentication requests coming in from IP addresses, don't require multi-factor authentication. Especially if you've got a service account using for that, it's not a user, then don't require those multi-factor authentication. But you can put security boundaries, like it's coming from a designated IP address. This is tied to your company building. You can put in a subnet or thing. Like, go on that route. Don't hack the system by using PVA to do something like that. Like, it is actually waiting for that RSA token to change, because it's almost next to impossible. Like, you're gonna have to. You don't really know which point that account is. That is it at the 10-second mark? Is it at the 30-second mark? Like, is that password going to change? You cannot predict that very well. So don't try to trick that system. Find the proper way to do it. And in this way, for a designated service account, you don't need that multi-factor authentication using or an RSA secure ID token. Just use proper techniques over there, because that literally could be designated as hacking. You are hacking the system, and you don't want to do that. You have proper ways to do it as well, where that account, it doesn't need the multi-factor or an RSA token, because it's doing it from a designated place. So don't try to trick the system. The system is pretty good. It can automate the heck out of stuff over here. What you do want to do is make sure that you do it the right way for things like that. So that was a very interesting question. It kind of resonated on me, and I spent some time thinking about that, and came up with proper way to do it is use all these other features and functionalities. But basically, towards the end, I'm actually done. So we were right over here. We went through all of these demos. What I want to show you now is finally, is Daniel, you showed me a lot. Actually, there was one more demo I want to show you. Let's do that one. This is the fully cloud flow and the demo flow, which I think I had it in my slide deck. I got to show you this one to y'all. Yeah, right here. This is the, actually, I didn't add it over there, but this is the one I want to show you. So this is one of those examples where I actually have a invoice coming in. All right, this is an actual invoice from a Canon accessory that I purchased. What I came up with as an automation process is now when these invoices come in to my Outlook, I have a cloud flow. That cloud flow will go ahead and recognize this as an invoice. It will go ahead and now grab that information. The AI from from Power Automate, which is basically the for the invoice AI builder. AI builder has one for the invoices, so it uses the AI builder, extracts the data from that invoice, then it triggers a desktop flow, sends all that information from the cloud flow information that it extracted, and then it uploads that information, or it manually adds that to a legacy desktop application. I want to demo that to you, right? So just to be on the safe side, let me just go and close all this stuff so I don't get confused. My flow doesn't get confused. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go. I've already got. I'm sending an email, like as if this is an email coming from outside. I'm sending it from my Gmail one. I'm sending it directly to my email address. And then I've gone in and put in this attachment, that attachment that I just showed you. So I'm going to go and click on send. All right, and we'll just wait over here so you can actually see there's an email going to come in. Now this email is coming to my email account, my Office 365 Outlook. And moment an email comes in with an attachment, and I can make it very clear also, it's coming from a very specific person. Moment that email comes in, the Cloudflow will trigger off. And the Cloudflow has the AI to extract data. So here you go. The email came in over here. It came in with the attachment. This is going to go and trigger the Cloudflow. The Cloudflow's AI automation piece will actually go and extract information from the invoice. There's actually a whole action to extract that. Once the extraction is completed, it's going to trigger the desktop flow. So any second now, you will see the desktop application open up. And then you will see the data which we extracted will be automatically added directly to the desktop over here. So it's happening right now. We'll just give it a minute because sometimes the cloud flow may take a little extra longer for the PDF to work. We just wait because the desktop flow is going to trigger. I mean, the desktop flow is going to trigger. We won't see it trigger. We might see a notification come through, but you will see the legacy application open up, and then it will go and populate all that information. We just wait and we wait. I don't like to touch it. There you go. Application opened up, goes to the invoices. It puts the data in. Amount was from Cameron, contact information, amount, put in all of that, and then saves it directly just like that. All right. This is full automation, 100%. This is pretty deep automation, both the cloud and the desktop flow talking to each other. And this is 100% automation. Like I didn't have to do any manual interface at all. The email came in, it recognized because it had the term invoice in it, plus there was an attachment. So the Cloudflow extracted the data, triggered the desktop flow, and the desktop flow opened up the legacy application and went and populated all of that. This is one of my personal favorite ones to show that deep integration between the cloud and the desktop. So here's now what I want to talk about. I explained a whole bunch to you. How do you start learning this? So there's two places. Right at the beginning of this meeting, Ed actually went and posted the Microsoft Learning content. I highly recommend you go through that as well. But I have created a full playlist for you. Like I've done 11 videos on this concept. Everything that I talked about, in fact, all the videos that I've shown you, all the demos that I've shown you, I've walked you through step by step. And this was actually the best way to explain it for me is do the introduction first. In fact, some of this introduction I already did to you, like, the console, the 5 different sections. So you're kind of already a step ahead. I've explained that. How does this desktop recorder work? Walked through that. Spend a lot more time on the message boxes. I kind of went through each and every message boxes, talked about variables, the desktop machine management, the attended and the unattended. Then I give you some examples, like how to use Excel. The example of the UPS tracking one. And then different ones, repetitive tasks. A lot of the examples I showed you had repetitive tasks. The loop inside the for each, I've explained it right here, showing the Outlook integration with the AI, handling exceptions, PDF creator. Remember the demo that I showed you of the invoices? And then other entities over there. This full learning content is available for you. It's 100% free, but it'll at least get you going. And then that, with that learning content on Microsoft, you'll be able to really go through the whole process over here. So that's basically it. Hopefully this video, hopefully this content was a little helpful. We covered a lot, showed you some complete demos over there. But at least if your wheels start turning, go try that learning thing over there. Go take a look at my videos over there. And remember, you may already be licensed for it if you already fall in any of those categories. And at least you can start going and doing at least the attended flows to start playing with that. And that's all I have.
That's it, Daniel.
That is
That's
it.
all. That was amazing session, and I would really love if everybody who's on this call could, come on camera, come off mute, and please let's give Daniel a round of applause for just going so deep and thorough with Power Automate Desktop. That was a
Thank you.
great presentation, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for sharing your YouTube. That is an awesome playlist that I would even like us to share. So Tina, if you don't mind taking that link, I'd love for us to continually share that to others
Thank
because I
you.
think it's such a great starting point, Daniel.
Thank you.
I'm definitely going to
Awesome.
be going through that list myself. Thank you.
Yeah, the RPA process blew my mind. It came as a surprise to me, honestly. Like, why they
Mm.
went in this direction.
Yeah.
But because then that's the thing. Some of us are very cloud first, mobile first companies. We can't even comprehend this concept. But there's actually a lot of companies out there who have these legacy homegrown applications that don't have APIs and things like that.
Oh, Daniel, I see it all the time.
I
And we work
was going to say, I'm sure you see that. So
yeah.
it definitely caught my interest. And then like that, that UPS tracking one is my personal favorite because a company I know and they do heavy shipping because that's during the holiday season, and the frustration on her face. And when she walked me through it, I said, no, you just did it. Like, we can record that. And we were able to save her so much time. And it's doable. It's just doable.
Love it. Any questions for those that are on the call while we have Daniel here with us? We can kind of keep it short. I know it's late, Daniel. I would love to let you get on with your evening. Well, there is one question I remember, and I don't know if this is the right link, but you had mentioned that licensing
Yeah.
certification. I think I found it on Pulse, but
No, this is it. This is it.
this is
Yeah,
it.
this is it. So you go ahead and sign in as if you're going to prepare for that.
Okay.
And then once you go in, you will get those PDF documentations. Yeah, this is it.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
you're awesome. That's a huge help, I think, for those that do want to, get that badge next to their name around licensing, because
Yeah.
this could be an all-day, full-time job in some ways.
Yeah, check your Azure subscriptions too. Those credits that you get, I know you at least get at least 100, 150. And so if you don't have the licenses, Power Apps per user, Power Automate per user, just go with the pay as you go tied to an environment. That's what I'm doing. I mean, you can see I've actually got this over here. It's actually pretty neat also, but since I just talked about it, when you do the pay as you go, I've got a pay as you go directly from my Power Automate robotic process automation. I've put in, you out of the box, Azure will give you this cost analysis. So it's telling me that I've gone ahead and actually run, these many flows. This is my total cost that it has done. It gives you this overall, it's actually just loading. And then I can go and put in some cost alerts. Like, I've actually put in a cost alert for $50. If anytime I hit over $50, give me an alert. This is Azure's subscription. So this is all been there for a long time. You created Azure VMs, Azure SQL, this is all there. But you can use the exact same cost, pay as you go for the Power Automate for desktop as well. And that's what I use. So it just helps me understand how usage is.
All right, with no more questions, Daniel, we'll let you get on with your evening. We hope
Thank
to
you.
have you back for a three-peat, one maybe next year or some other time. But thank
Yeah.
you again for being here. This was fantastic.
Thanks so much,
Yep.
Daniel. And thank you, everybody,
Thank you,
for being
Daniel.
here.